Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
More shakeup at the Treasury Department. The department is preparing for targeted layoffs at an office focused on monitoring the stability of the U.S. financial system. And over at the IRS, its IT shop is back in hiring mode. This comes after it permanently reassigned more than 1,200 IT employees to other parts of the agency. Federal News Network's Jory Heckman is here with more details. Jory, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Terry. Great to be here.
Seems like there's a lot of moving personnel pieces at the Treasury Department. Let's start with those layoffs. Who is going to be affected by that?
So this is coming down to the Office of Financial Research. This is a office that was created by Congress in the aftermath of the 2008 recession under the Dodd-Frank legislation to avoid similar economic crises from happening in the first place. They basically provide the data and keep an eye on the economic situation, look at key economic indicators to make sure that things are going well, and if there are red flags, trying to turn the ship back around. Now, this is an agency, this is an office that has been used to reductions. This was an office that saw about nearly half of its workforce cut under the first Trump administration, and it gradually built back up with its personnel. But now, once again, we're seeing this office go through some pretty major reductions. It's about a 60% cut. These are RIF notices that are expected to go out no later than mid-May. And there are some steps being taken here. Treasury is advising employees in this office to consider enrolling in a career transition assistance plan, basically that allows employees who are at risk of RIF notices to apply at other positions, open positions within Treasury at or below their current GS level, and also a reemployment priority list, which if they do get RIF'd and there are positions that open back up, they would be given priority consideration to fill those positions.
Jory, what's the logic behind this layoff?
This is an office that has been criticized not just from the Trump administration. There have been Republican lawmakers who have also been really trying to chip away at this office. An early version of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act last year would have eliminated this office. That provision never made it through to the final bill. Senator Ted Cruz has in recent years introduced legislation that would eliminate this office. The argument is basically that there are other offices, other employees within the Treasury Department that already monitor the economic health of the U.S. financial system, and that they don't need a designated office to do that work. So they say that they are overall redundant headcount for the Treasury Department.
And how many people then would be affected by these staffing cuts?
So what we've seen from the Trump administration in their budget proposal last year, they plan to cut staffing at the Office of Financial Research from nearly 200 full-time employees down to about 72.
And how does this connect to what's happening at the IRS?
As the Treasury Department is looking to reduce its headcount in this office, the IRS is in the business of hiring. They're back in hiring mode for some IT personnel. At a IRS all-hands meeting last month for its IT shop, the chief information officer said that he plans to hire up to 175 technical employees, and this is to fill critical staffing gaps in cloud, data, AI, and infrastructure to support strategic initiatives at the IRS.
And why is that happening now? They just went through a big reduction in their IT shop.
They did, and perhaps one leads to the other, right? Because we saw late last year in December, the IRS moved nearly 1,200 employees out of IRS IT. They were temporarily reassigned to report to the chief operating officer, although that the agency acknowledged that was a temporary reorganization. They were going to find other work for these employees to do, but they repeatedly stressed that that work was no longer going to be IT or technology related. Many of them, although not all of them, got 120-day details to work in taxpayer services, handle some of the frontline work for the filing season, assisting other people in taxpayer services, answer calls, process incoming tax returns, things of that nature. But for the long term, none of these employees have really been given much of an indication of what work they'll be doing beyond those 120 days or really in the long term at all.
Is the IRS saying anything about how well that reassignment is working?
The IRS has not really addressed that all too well, but on one critical piece of things, the IRS is really getting some concern from Capitol Hill, and that is the issuing of electronic refunds to people who typically don't receive them that way. There are now at this point nearly 1.5 million taxpayers who have gotten notices from the IRS saying, hey, you didn't send your banking information to us for direct deposit, and as a result, you may have to wait 10 weeks to receive a paper check from the agency. This is all because of an executive order last year where the Trump administration tried to wean all of the federal government off of paper checks, which they say are more prone to fraud and improper payments, to electronic payments. That's all well and good. The Treasury Department has gotten up into the high 90 percentile of those payments being electronic in nature. It really is those final 6-7% or so that are the sticking point here. But these are people who largely are used to receiving paper checks from the IRS, and they may be unbanked individuals who just don't have that information to give.
And if they don't ever provide that information, what is the IRS solution?
The IRS is really going to exhaust all of its options to make sure that everyone who is able to get this payment electronically does get it electronically.
That's Federal News Network's Jory Heckman. Jory, thanks for keeping us up to date on all of these changes.
Thanks, Terry.
You can find his story at federalnewsnetwork.com.